So today we're going to make Mandu. And Mandu is, I guess, translation you could say, Korean dumpling. And so there's all kinds of different parts to making Mandu. You have to make the, what they say, Mandu pea, Mandu shells, the shells that go on the outside. And then you got to make the inside. The inside's a meat. So there's either plain meat or kimchi meat for the insides. So we're going to make everything today. But on this video, I'm really only going to show you how to make the shells today. And then maybe a little bit later, we'll show you the insides. I'll show you what the insides look like today. But I probably won't take you all the way through making the insides. That's my wife's job. My wife makes all the insides. And then I make the shells. And then we bring my daughter in who helps put them all together. But our insides are a little unusual today because it's still not spring, so we don't have our green onions and our chives and everything in the garden yet. So maybe when spring comes and we've got green onions and chives, we'll bring you through how to make the insides. So I'm going to show you how to make the shells. Now you can buy the shells. You can go to the Korean store and usually they sell them in the frozen section. But I like to make them. They're not too hard to make. If you got the time. So and the ingredients are quite straightforward. It's 3-part flour to 1 part water. So 3 cups of flour to 1 cup of water, and then 1 tablespoon of oil, and then just a little bit of salt. Now you're going to see I'm going to make a lot. We're probably going to make 100 Mandu today. So I'm going to make 9 flours to 1 cup water and 3 tablespoons of oil. So I'm going to put all that in now. Your water has to be boiling. If you use very hot water, makes it go a lot smoother. Okay, now my water is boiling. So as I say, I'm making a triple batch here because we're going to make about 100 of these shells. And as I said, you could buy the shells. They're fairly cheap, but if you make them, they're quite simple ingredients and you know what's in them. So I'll put 3 cups of hot water. And 3 tablespoons of oil for a triple batch. And just one thing to remember is that depending on where you are, your flour could be more or less dry, and so you may have to play with the flour a little bit. But I made this recipe myself, so I know it works really well for the kind of flour I get here in Alberta. I don't put much salt at all. That's not even it's not even a teaspoon really for a triple batch. As I say, this is a lot. This is a triple batch that I've just made here. Make sure your counter is really clean. Always have a clean working space. And just like pasta, only it's much softer than pasta, right? Because we use water instead of eggs. So this is a really soft dough. It almost feels like a bread dough in a sense. And so we don't need it. We just basically need to roll it out. So you got to roll it nice and thin so that it fits in the pasta maker. Because I'm going to use the pasta maker. Now this is really different. I don't imagine there's too many Korean Mandu restaurants that make their Mandu using a pasta maker. There must be another way of doing it, but I discovered that you could do it with a pasta maker, so that's what I use. So once you get it thin enough, and I think this is thin enough, this will do fine. You have to make them. So this is about how round we want them. Now, if we cut them to fit, of course, we'd have too much leftovers because as we run them through the pasta maker, they're going to get thinner and thinner, and they're going to spread out. So I would say about 2/3 the size of the circle. So I've come up with a system here. I go like this, and then I go like that, and then I can go like that. Then I know where to cut them. Start making them like this. You just watch you don't cut your counter. So what I like to do now is just cover them with just a bit of plastic. You don't need much. Just cover them with just a bit of plastic, and you can leave them like this until they just come fully down, sort of room temperature. Just let them sit. Now you don't have to let them sit too long. Now you can take these, you can actually freeze these, and you could use them later if you wanted, or you could let them sit in the fridge. But if you leave them for half an hour until my wife gets the insides ready. So for today, I'm just going to quickly talk you through the inside part of the mandu, the actual meat, and then maybe one day we'll do a whole video where we show you how to make the insides. So the very first thing my wife does is she cuts up the kimchi, because there's two kinds we're going to make. We're going to make meat mandu, or gogi mandu, we'll call it gogi mandu, and kimchi mandu. So for the kimchi mandu, she has to chop the kimchi into very small little parts and get that ready. So the next thing she needs to do is to get the tofu ready. And she uses a medium firm tofu. You could use a firm tofu. Either one will be fine. We're using medium firm tofu, but you got to get all the water out of it. So she squeezes all the water out from using a cheesecloth. So just put it in some cheesecloth and squeeze all the water out of your tofu. And now this is what's a little unusual. Normally you're supposed to put green onions and chives in. That's what everybody uses. But we don't get any green onions and chives this time of year. And we can't go out to the store right now because we're locked down with this coronavirus. So everyone can only go to the store every couple of weeks. So we went to the store a few days ago, and we don't have any green onions and chives. So we're just going to use onions. The next thing my wife's getting ready is the noodles. They're called tangmyeon, or a sweet potato noodle. You can buy them at the Korean store. Probably buy them at any Asian store. But if you don't have them, you could also use any kind of glass noodles that you have. Any very sort of thin glass noodle that you have, you can use. And they'll work just fine. But the right thing is tangmyeon. So they just have to be boiled for just a few minutes. And then they'll be ready. And so with them as well, you just strain them, and then you got to chop them. There's different ways you can chop them. You can either cut them with scissors, or you can try chopping them with a knife, which is a lot of work, or you can put them in a food processor and just grind them all up, which is actually what we do. So we have two kinds of mandu that we're making. You can see on the far right hand is the kimchi mandu. That'll have kimchi and meat and tofu and the noodles and onion. And then the other one is just plain meat mandu, which has meat. We're using pork, by the way. That's all pork. That's not beef. And so we're using pork and the noodles and the tofu and the onion. So that's the main sort of ingredients. And so the next thing we have to do is, once we get all that in, is to season it. So she's going to season it with some soya sauce and some salt. And you don't have to put too much salt in the kimchi one, because there's like a lot of salt in kimchi already. So she puts a little bit more salt in the meat one than she does in the kimchi one. And then some black pepper and some dried garlic. But dried garlic's the same way. It's really good in the meat mandu, but not so important for the kimchi mandu. So then she has to put in the ingredients that she forgot, which is an egg, and then you also need something just to give just a bit of sweetness. And she uses her homemade applesauce. Maybe in the fall we'll do a video on making homemade applesauce. But so she put some of her homemade applesauce. Okay, so they're totally ready. We have kimchi mandu insides and gogi mandu insides all ready to go. And so we'll get back to making the shells and show you how to put it all together. Okay, so we used to buy these, but but one day I gave it a try with my pasta maker and it worked out perfectly. So now, the biggest difference between this and pasta is that it's much softer. You know, pasta has no water. This has a cup of water in it, so this is much softer than pasta. It's easy to work with. You just got to watch it doesn't gum up your pasta maker. So you kind of have to have lots of flour, a lot more flour on this one than you would use for pasta. So we set it to number 7, and just like the pasta, you run it through. Okay, they're all ready. They're all formed up nice. Now we can eat them. So, we used to take, this is just paper toweling, and it's just wet. And if you put the wet paper toweling into your steaming unit, then they don't stick as much. So it's really a good trick. Whatever you use for steaming will work, but this is our steamer here. And so these are the meat mandus, and these are the kimchi mandus. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put a little bit of oil in in this pan here, because we're going to fry something. So I'll just put just a bit of oil. You don't need too much oil to fry it. You can use oil as well for, instead, when you're steaming them, you can use oil to steam them if you don't want to put paper towel, either way. But we find it easier with paper towel. Okay, and then we'll put these here for steaming, and I'm just going to steam these for about 8 minutes. So I'll put the timer on so I don't forget. Okay, we can make some sauces for these, and this is soy sauce. So you put a bit of soy sauce. And then in your soy sauce, put just a bit of vinegar. Any vinegar will do. This is rice vinegar, but you can put any vinegar in. Not too much, just a splash. And then we use red pepper powder, just to give it a bit of spice. Okay, they're all ready. So we have actually 4 kinds of mandu. We have fried kimchi mandu and fried gogi mandu, and we have steamed kimchi mandu and steamed gogi mandu, and we have our sauce to go with it. So that's dinner for tonight.